Mitch. How you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. Couple things. First, was wondering whether you'd had a chance to talk to Larry, and maybe you can, if you can convey, if you have, maybe you can convey some of the difficulty that how difficult that decision was for him. And also, with him out, you're going to be playing next to a new right guard. Just what are your thoughts on that process, and particularly without OTAs and a real full training camp, what that process might be like this year?
Yeah, I mean, he's already put out a statement and talked about how difficult it was. I mean, we know how much he cares about football and being here. So for him to be able to make that decision and choose that, we know how difficult that was. So he's already covered that. Anything we've talked about is between us. In terms of new guys, we've got guys who have been here. We got a couple new guys. That's something that I think Coach Heck has always been extremely good with in terms of moving people around and making sure that throughout training camp and throughout the practice times he's cross training as many people as possible so that when you inevitably do have guys get hurt or things happen, you're not playing next to someone that you never played next to before. So even if it's drill to drill, guys, doesn't really matter where you line up. You just kind of get a feel for who's next to you. So we got a lot of really good players. I mean, I think our offensive line is going to be awesome this year, and it's just nice to kind of get back into the normal swing of things.
Let's go to Matt Derrick. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Mitch. Hope you're doing well. Coach Reed on Saturday talked about just the fact that the personal responsibility that players have once they leave the facility is just going to be just as important. Curious, as a veteran on this team, what have you and guys like Patrick has been the message to the younger players as far as what they've got to do when they're not there in the building?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to control that, obviously. I think the biggest thing is, you go through the meetings, and as you kind of see the steps that have to happen in terms of if a guy gets COVID, all of a sudden all the people that he's potentially been around needs to quarantine for a little bit of time. And so one guy testing positive could have this huge, spill off where, a certain amount of people then have to go away for 5 days. And there's all these kind of steps in the process that you realize, like, hey, one single test could really have an effect on multiple weeks for our football team, especially once we get into season. So, I think that was the biggest thing that people kind of realized. It's not, oh, I have it, I got to stay out for 2 weeks, that sucks, but it's going to be okay. It's, oh, I have it, these other people could be affected, and now it's kind of this debilitating thing that, we see with the Marlins, a couple guys get it, and then the whole team gets it. So I think we all, realize how important it is. It's obviously going to take a lot of, self-discipline to make sure we're doing our thing away from the building, because, in the building, it's honestly easier than anything else. You see signs everywhere, everyone else is wearing masks, there's disinfectant everywhere. These guys have done such a great job of setting us up for success here. It's going to take that kind of discipline away from the building.
Let's go to Pete Sweeney. Go ahead, Pete.
Hey, Mitch, thanks for taking some time. Joey Bosa just signed a contract extension. This is one of your rivals each and every year. I see him twice a year. I was just curious, him in particular, what makes him unique, and what goes into your preparation when it does come time for Bosa week?
The preparation was just a lot of panic that week and trying to calm your stress down. But he's just, incredibly well-rounded. There are guys that have a plan in terms of they want to attack you this way and they study you and all that. And there's guys who are instinctive, and he really combines the two of them. He has a plan and he knows how he wants to attack you. He knows what's going to work. And then, the second you overset, he goes inside, or the second you set too far on your heels, he feels that, he bull rushes you. So, it's really difficult. There's not much you can do. You just got to try to kind of battle and hope the ball's out. He's able to do anything and either run or pass. And so that's, something that that's why, he's the highest paid guy in football on the defensive side. And, it's very well deserved.
Let's go to Harold Kuntz. Go ahead, Harold.
Hey, Mitch, I want to ask you about some of the newer guys in the offensive line. I don't know if you know too much about it, but Assembly and Rimmers, and along with Martinez Rankin coming back. I know that you guys have always mentioned that, kind of getting your time right and spacing right is kind of the big things that you work on before camp. How are you going to be able to try to work on those things with kind of a new group kind of being meshed together?
Yeah, you don't necessarily get the feel for things until you're in pads anyway. And, for the most part, we have, I'm pretty sure, about as many padded practices as we normally would. So, they might not all be the same length as they used to be, whether that's COVID or new CBA rules. But I think we're going to have a pretty good amount of practice. And, honestly, the older guys are and the more they've played, I think the easier it is to kind of mesh them together. Obviously, KO's had an awesome career. Remmers has had a really good career too. And so, those are guys who understand fits and understand how to play together with people, next to people. So that's something, I'm not too worried about. And then, yeah, I mean, Rank, he played great last year. I was really excited to see him keep progressing. It was a bummer. I guess my injury kind of made him get hurt as well because he had to move to right tackle. But yeah, I hope to see him healthy. I don't know exactly what his status is going to be, but I know he played really well last year, and just excited to keep seeing that growth. And I think we've seen, offensive linemen get injured every year. It could be one, it could be five, and they've always had really good depth here, and that's what has been able to keep us sustaining success.
Let's go to Bob Fesco. Go ahead, Bob.
Mitch, you mentioned the Marlins, and I know it's another sport, but you brought it up and we talked with Hitch about it as well. When you see something like that happen in another sport, how big a kind of a wake-up call maybe is it for everybody else in professional sports? When you see that one team could bring down maybe an entire league just based on the fact that they may not have done what they were supposed to be doing away from the facility, and how do you relay that message as a veteran leader to those younger guys in the locker room that may not have families or anybody else at home?
Yeah, like you said, it's just seeing what's going on and, making sure guys are doing the right thing. If you see someone, it's easy when you're at the meal room, you take your mask off, you're eating, you get up to go get a water. You're used to that, but that's a time where, you got to remember to put your mask back on because you're going to come in close contact with other people. So things like that, you see things, hey, just make sure you're doing this. And then, ideally, we're here for however many hours a day. You just get so used to it that that's kind of what happens at home. We've always had, football being, the last sport to finish and, kind of the first one to start back up with the COVID. We've obviously had the most time to try to learn from other sports, see what they're doing. Obviously, they got delayed and didn't start till this month anyway. But we have the benefit of, seeing what's going on, potentially learning from their mistakes. So we just got to, kind of keep that practice going. And, yeah, just realizing, especially, baseball is 25 guys, basketball is 12 guys, and we're on a much larger scale. So, that first domino can affect, a lot more than, the other sports.
Let's go to Nate Taylor. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Mitch. Good to see you again. I have two questions for you. On the football side, I know you guys have to keep a ton of awareness and obviously accountability and sustaining it in terms of the coronavirus and obviously trying to keep everybody healthy. When you guys do have practice and when you guys do put on the pads, because there's been so much time off between now and the Super Bowl, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge for maybe you and the team as a whole when you guys do get to practice? And then secondly, because of all the arrangements that have been put in place to keep you guys as healthy as possible, was there anything that you saw when you first got into the facility that maybe surprised you or you weren't prepared for that you think will ultimately lead to success in keeping guys healthy?
To the first question, you're always worried about change of direction stuff. That's something that, I think Coach and Rick and those guys have a good plan for. You can be in good shape or great shape, but you're never really in football shape until you're playing football. So that's something that you kind of get into football shape in a lesser degree during OTAs. So we have to catch back up a little bit on that. And I know the schedule allows us a few of those types of practices, before camps. And I think pretty sure like the first padded practice is only an hour and a half. And then there's like a 15-minute kind of ramp period. So, typically you'd show up, you'd run a conditioning test, you'd have two, kind of lighter practices, and then you'd be potentially in like a 3-hour padded practice. And, now we've got 2.5 weeks until we practice or whatever it is. And then that first practice is only an hour and a half. So I think the ramp up is going to be, a really good thing for us. And, I know Rick's always, kind of cutting edge in terms of the science and knowing what we need. To the other question, when you go in the locker room and you see all the, the glass, spacers, I think that's probably the biggest thing that, hits you. We've had the lockers have to be spread out and all this, but then you actually literally see all these glass dividers, and it's going to be kind of funny to see people try to change and maneuver in them, because for the big guys, it's not the most space in the world. But I think, that, again, that's kind of just the stark reminder that's going to be there every day of, how important it is and how important, physical space is.
All right, guys, we've got two hands up. Let's go to Amanda, and then we'll close it out with Bob. Go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, I was just wondering what it's been like for you to see Alex Smith make his comeback and I mean, he was a former teammate of yours. So what's it just been like to see him come back in Washington?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, I don't really like watching injury stuff, so I wasn't really able to watch the E60 thing because I don't, like seeing visuals like that. And so, it's really impressive that he's gotten all the way back. And I don't know exactly. I think originally it was reported he was all the way back, and then he's on PUP. I'm not sure what the official status is, but the fact that he's back to this point and potentially going to be ready to play an NFL season is obviously incredible. I mean, we all know the kind of worker he is and the kind of guy he is. I mean, the past couple of years we've heard Pat talk about that and how much his career has been shaped by Alex. So it doesn't really surprise any of us that he's gotten himself back to this point. And when he puts something in his head and he wants to challenge himself, we've seen it time and time again. He's going to do it. I mean, that last season here, he was the best downfield passer in the NFL, according to the stats. And that was, the thing that everyone kind of bashed him for. So he put that in his head. He made it happen. So it's definitely not a surprise. And it's, obviously really great to see him and that he's healthy enough to be able to play football again.
Let's go to Bob Fesco to close this out. Go ahead, Bob.
Mitch, you jokingly, or maybe not jokingly, said panic for Bosa week. What do you think the feeling is in the other locker rooms when they have to prepare for Mahomes week?
I would imagine pretty similar. There's talking about another guy that knows what to do on the script and also can just freelance off script. It's nice having him on our side, that's for sure. Just incredible. I mean, obviously the contract is more than justified, and it's exciting to know that he's going to be here for forever. And obviously the Royals ownership stake, and I think it just keeps cementing himself into the city. I mean, there's a pretty special connection between him and the city. Just being, I think when I first got here, I mean, someone said the last homegrown Chiefs quarterback to win X number of games or win a playoff game or something had been over 30 years. And so Kansas City drafted Pat. He's the guy. He's homegrown, best quarterback in the NFL. All those things. Hopefully he's got 15 or 20 years left. So it's gonna be really fun to see. And I'll be long gone by the time he's in his late 30s. But I'll be rooting him on.
Well, Mitchell, we appreciate you joining us. Thanks for the time today.
Thank you, guys.